Hi, good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to my daily live YouTube session on mindset. Mindset is all about the way we are perceiving the reality, the way we are connecting the dots and establishing the cause and effect by thinking, the way we are deciding by either uh, assessing the benefit and the effort or just by going with the gut, and finally, the way we are acting or responding with conviction and clarity and consistency. Mindset is something which gets formed in each one of us based on our past experiences and memories, especially those which are emotionally charged up, and they have a much higher weightage in our mindset, which is nothing other than based on our experiences. A framework gets formed in our subconscious, and this subconscious framework is what that does predictions in real time basis. And based on the predictions, which is done in real time basis, we perceive reality, we think, we decide, and act or respond. So that's what mindset is all about. And I've been talking about mindset quite regularly, or every day, I would say. And I've been telling you and telling everybody that we need to really understand what mindset is first, and then start thinking of changing the mindset and try to change the mindset. Why is changing the mindset required? Because that is what that bridges the gap between knowing and doing. Knowing is something which we learn through cognitive learning, which is taught in colleges, schools, and various training programs. And to really make sure that that knowing gets into reality, we need to be changing the mindset, because unless the subconscious is, what should I say, prioritize that new learning and a new way of behaving, it would never happen, because that would not be what would be suggested and what would be predicted. Therefore, we will not be in a position to execute whatever that we learned, uh, do whatever that we know. And the reason for doing whatever we knowing is that the mindset has changed, and our knowing has got integrated into our subconscious, and only then can we start doing it with conviction and consistency. And that's something which is extremely important, and that's the reason why I've been sharing my knowledge and my enlightenment to everybody on why mindset is so important, and why is it that we need to work on changing the mindset to evolve an agile mindset. An agile mindset is something where we are trying to look at opportunities and trying to look at new learning. It's something which is described as the mind of a Sthita Prajna in Bhagavad Gita. That's what agile mindset is all about. And in the Western world, they call it as agile mindset, growth mindset. In the Indian world, we have been knowing that for a long, long, long time. But then possibly nobody really put it in a way that somebody can understand, because the way one has to behave is described in Bhagavad Gita, but how to get one to behave in that, to come to that kind of a level is possibly not described anywhere. And I have, what should I say, discovered how to do it based on my life experiences. It's nothing that I have invented or discovered, or invented or created something new on my own. It's based on my life experiences, doing a lot of reading and experimenting, and only through that I have learned how to change mindset. And before we talk about changing mindset, it's important to understand what mindset is. Mindset, like I said, is about the way we are perceiving the reality, the way we are thinking by connecting the dots and establishing the cause and effect, the way we are deciding either by the gut or by assessing the benefit and effort, and finally the way we are acting with conviction and consistency. That's what mindset is all about. And I've been asking you to do a very simple baby step exercise of talking to your neighbors, friends, relatives, or colleagues on their perceptions of people to people interactions and what you assume their perceptions would be. Try to find the differences and commonalities and establish a dialogue to develop a common collective mindset. Because in teams, a collective mindset is extremely important for the teams to really perform as a clock, teamwork like a clock, like clockwork, so that the magic of synergy is really realized in our day-to-day life. That's very brief about mindset and why mindset is so important. Now, let me talk about why do we need to work on mindset from the perspective of projects. Because this week's today's sharpening theme for in my quarterly business plan template is projects. So let me talk about projects and what is that critical thing in projects which doesn't get done, though we know it a lot, and why we need to change mindset to do that. So in projects, typically there are always very various multiple interfaces. Project is something, to describe very, very briefly, project is something which is being done for the first time. Operations are activities which are being done repetitively. So there are two lines of what should I say, production of a service or or a product. One line is operation, which is the repetitive production, repetitive doing of the same thing, and that you could call it as production or operations. That is one line, where it is the same activity which is being replicated. So it's mass production of whatever whatever be the topic that we're talking about. Could be service. In service, it could be as simple as scanning invoices and then filling in the ledger for the ERP. That is a production activity. And in it's an operations activity. And in the case of production, it could be producing a part or a component. That is a production activity. That's something which is repetitive. So that's a production or operation which is more repetitive in nature. And when it comes to projects, it's something which you do both a product and a service, but only for one time. It is not something which is going to be repeated the next time. Typical production projects would be a new machine, for example, capital equipment, which or it could be a new building which you construct, or it could be something to do with erecting a structure. All these are one-off, because the same kind of a structure will not repeat. The same kind of a building will not repeat. It will be different. There will be different site conditions, different architectural concepts. So it will be a different product altogether. On the service side, it would be development of a software, for example. Development of a software is completely a service job. There is no hardware or no product per se involved, and it is something unique, one-off. It cannot be repeated again. For example, if you are trying to make Excel software, a very, very complex one though, but then let us say Excel is something known to everybody. If you have to make an Excel software, you only make one software, one program, one package of the entire software, and that's the one which will sell. That is what which will be sold. And selling that is not really a big operations topic, because it's just copying and then storing it some server and somebody can download it. You know, that simple it is nowadays with the availability of cloud. So there is no concept of operations in this particular case of software development. It could be also another case of software development where it could be something to do with operations, which has mostly to do with maintenance, where you are trying to maintain an existing software where some activity needs to be repeatedly done. It could be, let us say, finding out solutions using a ticket, the ticketing system, for example, for addressing complaints, or it could be something to do with annotations. You know, these are used in artificial intelligence companies, where they need to annotate various videos, various text, and etc., whatever that is available, so that the machine can learn from that. You know, machine cannot understand that this is a hand and these are fingers. So for the machine to understand that this is a hand and these are fingers, somebody should take the picture of the hand and the finger and keep telling or annotating that this part of the picture is the index finger, then the middle finger, ring finger, and the small finger, and after that there's a thumb. So that needs to be somewhere described, and this description process is called as annotation. And that annotation is something which is repetitive in nature. That could be a production or an operation activity. Project would be something which you're doing for the first time. So in projects, always there'll be a lot of interfaces, especially between the customer and the company or the organization which is delivering the project. Now, these interfaces are extremely important, because in project, there are a lot of activities which are generally done by the customer, and in sync with that, the delivering company would also deliver some packages which would sync with the customer's activities which the customer is doing. As an example, it could be, let us say, in the case of construction, the customer could be doing all the civil works, and another company which is delivering a structure could be doing the metal fabrication, for example. So unless the civil work is done, the metal fabrication cannot be erected there. So there is an interlink there. There is an interface. Or it could be in T&D, that is transmission and distribution projects. It is necessary that the government, for example, is in a position to acquire the land and allow the company which is erecting the poles and then erecting the lines for transmission and distribution is getting that free land, or let us say acquired land from the government, so that on that land they can dig and then place the poles and then make the lines. So everywhere there is an interconnection. In the case of product projects, in the case of service projects, again the same thing. Let us say you look at a marriage as a service project. The service project may involve organizing flowers, organizing, that would be one project. Another project could be to get the stage organized. So then if the flowers have to be organized, then it's important that the chowdhury is booked and the chowdhury location is known, and the way the flower arrangement has to be done, that is again defined by the client. So these things are again interlinked. Unless the chowdhury is booked, you don't know how to arrange, or don't know what the conditions are, or unless the timing is fixed, you don't know how to do the when to do the flower arrangement, and how is the possibility of parking a vehicle to get the flowers into the chowdhury. These are all some topics which need to be considered. Therefore, the client's portion of defining the chowdhury and releasing the chowdhury so that the parking space is available for the vehicle to be parked is something which is integrated with the delivery of flowers. Flower making, of course, has a product which is a flower, but more than that, there are a lot of service involved there, which is to arrange the flowers in a particular way, which is the competence, which is the service that the organization brings in. So there is always an interface between the company which is delivering a product or a service and the project and the customer in case of projects. Now, so far so good. You've understood that. I'm sure it's not that difficult. Now, imagine I am the one delivering the project and I've got milestones for recovery. And then these milestones have been defined and agreed upon with the customer. Now, in the plan which I've done, there are also activities or tasks which have to be done by the customer. Now, is it not quite common to understand that any delay in any of these tasks could delay the project? That's something which is understood. Task delay means project delay. Now, second is, if the task gets delayed, then the project is getting delayed. Then who would own the responsibility of the delay in the project? Because generally, nowadays, the projects are all linked to penalty clauses. So if the project task gets delayed, who's going to own the responsibility? Now, in the case of customer, if the delay was from the customer, then the customer would have to own the responsibility. Let me give you the example of a T&D project, that is transmission and distribution project. Let us say we made sure that all the poles are ready for erection, cables are ready, and then we got the entire manpower mobilized. Everybody is sitting in a particular location where the digging has to start. But the government or the government agency in this case has not been able to acquire the land and give the clearance. Now, if such a thing happens, then you have got a burning cost because you did the poles, pole is already ready. At least that you can say is something which is manufactured. Whereas, and there is no recurring cost for that. But once done, it is done. Whereas in the case of labor, they are sitting there and then they are constantly waiting for the release to come from the government. So every day means every day you're going to burn that money, right? And who's going to pay for that? The government or the customer in this case would expect you to pay because you are the executing agency. But it is not right on your part to accept to pay because it is not your reason why it got delayed. You understand the conversation here? Therefore, whenever there is a project, it's absolutely mandatory to record and document the delays and the changes in the timings when it is involving two different third parties. In this case, two third parties would be one, the customer, the other one is the supplier, who would be the one who's supplying the project. So it's understood. It's very simple. That means you need to document, make sure that it is known to everybody that this delay will cost us so much money, or there is a delay, therefore the end project will get delayed. Therefore, there is no possibility of levying a penalty because of the project delays. That clause itself doesn't apply here. Those things have to be documented and discussed at that particular moment. Is it understood? Clear? Now, how many times do we do that? There is a lot of, what should I say, motivation for customer orientation, which means I don't want to really cause any kind of a conflict with the customer. So customer says, can you please adjust one more day? We'll adjust. Okay. Another day we'll adjust, because we don't want to cause any disturbance with the customer. The entire organization would be having a problem. There will be a churn, and then all that will be a problem. So I don't really do that at all. Why does that happen? Basically because of the mindset. If the owner of the company which is delivering the product or the service, in this case, if you ask him, he has absolutely no doubt in telling that even a second delay by the customer when his task is having a particular due date, which is going to affect my timelines, even 1 second delay, I'm going to record it and document it and get his signature saying that I've delayed by 1 second, because that is going to cost me money. Whereas within the organization of the company which is delivering the project, it doesn't happen that way, because they feel that, okay, if I tell somebody may not feel nice, it may not work out, all these things will happen. That's because of mindset, not because they don't know, because of mindset, because the mind doesn't allow, because there are so many experiences which you have had in the past, which then get pushed up in your subconscious as the subconscious mind does the predictions, and these predictions don't allow you to do the documentation, because any documentation means it's quite critical, right? The people generally don't want to put it in paper, in writing. They would like to speak and then get away with it. In this case, it cannot be possible. It cannot be allowed to people to get away with it, because it has got direct financial implications and the reputation of the company which is delivering the product or service. How many times do you do that? Ask yourself. And the reason for that is mindset. So having spoken about this documentation of the interfaces, any change in the interfaces, and the other one is the scope. Scope is also another classic thing. I gave the project with a scope X, and as the project moved along, the scope changed. It is quite obvious. It has to change. Otherwise, it's not a project. If the scope is perfect, there is no change at all, then it is not project at all. It's like buying a customized product. It's not a project. A project has to have deviations, has to have a change in the scope, has to have changed the timelines. That is a project, because there is so much amount of surprise, there is so much amount of uncertainty. So it's not possible to predict with such an accuracy, because you are doing it for the first time. It's like adventuring somewhere. You don't know what's going to happen. There are so many surprises. You really don't know at all. So to accept that there will be so many surprises and to take care of that in your documentation is extremely important. One is the timelines. The second is the scope of the project. Scope of the project is again very interesting. I am a good customer, and I am a fantastic negotiator. So moment there is a change in the scope, I tell this guy to change the scope. He says that, no, sir, if I do that, the project gets delayed. Then I will tell him that, look, you had to deliver something on this particular date. You have not done that. Therefore, you have to adjust this and somehow make sure that it is done without any additional impact. So he does the initial review, etc., and agrees to that. Everything is done verbally. And at the point of payment, then the problem starts. Sir, I didn't make money. I'm losing money serving with you, because you didn't give me the additional cost for the scope. Then I tell him that, look, I already spoke to you. You said that you could manage within the existing budget itself. So for all those things to be avoided, it's mandatory that you start documenting it. And documenting can happen only if the mindset of each and every individual in the company which is delivering gets changed to understanding what is the implication of the documentation, why it has to be done. Therefore, the mindset change is extremely necessary. In projects especially, there are a lot of touch points. It's not just the sales guy who's talking to the customer and or getting the order, like in the case of normal operations, where the touch points from various people in the organization with the customer is not very high. Whereas in projects, almost everybody has a touch point to the customer in some way or the other. So therefore, it's important that the entire organization understands this need to document whatever that happened with the customer and creates an outstanding documentation system, so that the changes which are happening can be accounted for and can be accordingly adjusted in the project timelines, project budget, and the project specification. Having spoken about projects, it was quite a interesting topic for me. I'm sure you would have understood the implication of this. Now, let me very briefly touch upon the daily review which you need to do on a daily basis. Yesterday, I spent some time on that. Scoreboard, success and failure from previous day, rolling plan, then comes the deviation management, teamwork, seamlessness, recognition and celebrations, and finally, escalation on any topics which you need to inform the management, which is to give a heads up or to seek approvals or to seek support or to just report the progress where to stand today, so that they are quite comfortable and convinced that you are on the right track and you would be able to achieve the target without any problem. So these 7 topics are a standard of the daily daily meeting. I'm not sure how many of you do that. If you don't, please start practicing it. But this is the basics. I keep telling that whenever I speak in any such association discussion or any public event, that one of the small common things which I have seen in most of the companies, if you look at big multinational companies like a Bosch or a Volvo or a Toyota or ABB, they've got a fantastic rhythm of daily meetings. Why is it so? That's something always really baffled me. Mahindra, I'm not sure how it is in Mahindra. I've never been to a Mahindra daily meeting. They also must be having that. Tata Motors to some extent has it. But the outside multinational companies which are operating in India have an outstanding daily meeting. Why is it so? You thought of that? It's very simple. If you have a daily meeting which is robust, then whatever data you're getting at the management level to analyze, to really review, has meaning. Otherwise, it's all cooked up, because there is no traceability. There is no possibility to trace it back to what happened on the shop floor, what happened on the working floor in the case of a services industry. How do you ensure that the traceability is there and it is authentic data that you are referring at the management, at the board level? And to do that, you need to have a very, very outstanding daily management structure and daily review structure, scoreboards, and all this have to be available. And so at any given point of time, anybody sitting either in Japan or Germany, if it is Bosch, or Switzerland, if it is ABB, or Sweden, if it is Volvo, are in a position to dig through their entire data without any problem within seconds, that they can understand and trace back to whatever that is shown in the board meeting to what the actual reality is. Therefore, this daily meeting is extremely mandatory. And for companies in India which are working standalone, it becomes very, very interesting to implement that so that you can get traceability. And traceability means accountability. Accountability means performance. Performance means becoming world class. So that's as simple as that. Thanks a lot for watching. And before I leave, very quick request to you on talking to your neighbors, friends, relatives, or colleagues on their perceptions of people to people interactions and what you assume their perceptions would be. Try to find the commonalities and the differences and engage in a dialogue to establish a common collective mindset. Thanks a lot. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And see you tomorrow, more or less the same time. And have a nice evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.